Hi, everybody. Welcome to another adventure into From Adversity to Awakening. I have a special guest with us today named Laura Worley. She has been through some severe adversity, which she'll be telling you about in a little bit. And I just want to welcome Laura. Hi, Laura.
Hi, Peggy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're here. And I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about Laura right now. So, Laura is, of course, a speaker, a trainer, coach, and author. She's written 2 books and on the 3rd book, is that right?
hmm
Yeah.
Yep.
She has successfully helped thousands of people around the world address issues stemming from complex trauma and ritual abuse. Laura trains both clients and professionals in unique and powerful techniques that help survivors transform their lives. As the creator of the Worldwide Transformational Summit, she has interviewed over 85 of the top global authors and motivational speakers in the field of transforming life. So we're kind of doing a similar thing. Yeah, Laura wrote the book Puzzle Pieces to the Cabal, Mind Control and Slavery, Part One, and Puzzle Pieces Together, Part Two, soon to be published. So I'm looking forward to seeing that book as well. So, welcome, Laura, and why don't you tell us a little bit about the ordeal that you have been through, the adversity? Yeah.
All right. Well, I was just unlucky enough to be put in a generational family that they call generational um, SRA group. Have you guys heard of that? It's satanic ritual abuse. And what usually happens is it's generational. And so, as far as I know, for my family, it's went back almost 8 generations. So I feel like I've been put in this family because I'm the only one that I know of that has even tried to get free. And so it's really important to do this work right now because there's millions of people all over the world that are under mind control and that have been put under mind control, not only by the satanic cults, which we call the Illuminati, the Freemasons, the Kabbalah, the Knights of Templar. Anyway, these are groups, but the military is very strong in this as well,
Mm.
participating in satanic rituals as well as using witchcraft when they do programming to people,
Mhm. Yeah.
and they affect millions of people around the world.
Um, it's very hard to hear that and hard to believe it. And there are evil forces out there and they're doing their thing. And I'm so what you said that you're the only one in your family of 8 generations that tried to get free. I'm curious, what do you think it was in your makeup that gave you the impetus or the strength or something inside or something outside? Maybe it was a person, maybe it was an experience.
I feel like God sent me here to break the chains.
Uh-huh.
That's what I feel. That's what I
Uh-huh.
feel like I've gotten through prayer. That I was sent, I agreed to be sent
Uh,
to break this chain of, so many lost people. Because, unfortunately, when you're in a generational family, you don't have a free will. You don't have a choice to say, no, I don't want to do this. You will do it, period. And
right.
so that's what's so lost is, we're talking thousands of people have lost their lives and had no free will all their life.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
important. Free will is a big thing for me because if you don't have free will to choose, and what people don't understand is our governments right now with the globalists are trying to take away not only your freedoms, but the free will of you so that
Yeah.
you can't even choose that.
Yes. Well, also, I mean, as you were saying that, it's like a lot of very, what we maybe say, conservative families don't give the children a choice about what they're going to do for their livelihood, who they're going to marry, where they're going to live. They don't have choices. I mean, you see movies all the time about young people trying to break out of those footholds. So I'm sure that there's a like world of difference of between people that are being controlled under sexual slavery and all of that kind of stuff.
Right.
But also there are probably millions upon millions of people that have the mind control of, their domination from the parents, from the grandparents, from the family, where they can't express their true selves and they
Right.
can't be authentic. And what an incredibly sad thing that is. And then the more that you're like disappointed in what you can do in your life, the more you separate from yourself, from God, from and kindness falls away, and the lack of resiliency and ability. Okay, I'm talking too much. So
No,
anyway,
you're not.
it's just it's yeah, this control thing is huge. So tell us about how in your desire to become free, you probably went through. I know you went. I because you and I, my connection with Laura is that we're both faster EFT tapping practitioners, and we met
Mhm.
there. And Laura has gone on now to be this amazing trainer that's helping people with this very high level of trauma. So, can you hear my dog honking the horn of the car?
Uh-uh. No.
She was barking at squirrel. Now she's honking the horn. Okay. Anyway, um, so how did you in the desire to become free, how did you do that? Like how did you go through what was your process to work out your quest for freedom?
Well, it started in 1989 when I told my husband he had problems. And he said, well, if I have problems, you have problems, and we're both going to therapy, just not me. So that's when I started to remember that I had been sexually abused.
Right.
And I found that out because I had suppressed my whole life through free handwriting. And that's a surprising information to be given by a 1989 therapist. Now, in the 1990s, I continued to go to different therapists and got absolutely no help. And no one, by 4 years later, I started to remember the cult abuse. And then through the years, I remembered different groups that did different things to me.
Uh-huh.
So it wasn't just a one-time thing. It took time to remember all that. And really, at the level of programming that I had, I shouldn't have even any memories even to this moment, because they're pretty good at making sure you don't.
Well, that's why, good news for therapy and good news for that there is a way to get around it, right?
There is, and unfortunately, it is not through talk therapy, because as we know, talk therapy uses the logic mind,
Right,
and you've got to use your subconscious mind if you want to get anywhere. And
right,
so I really did not start healing, truly healing, until I found holistic methods. And
right.
then I got certified in a whole bunch. I learned a whole bunch, went to every seminar I could, and then I really started getting much, much better. And then unfortunately, it brought up some more memories. So, but as a survivor of SRA, you have to be patient with yourself, because
Yeah,
it's not a 1 minute thing. It's going to take some years of
yeah.
healing, but it won't take as long as it took me, because I was in a 25-year journey.
Right.
Uh,
Well, you didn't have an effective methods from
no,
the get-go. And also these new therapies have been developing over the last 15 years. They didn't
yeah.
exist back in the 90s.
Yep,
So,
that's right.
yeah, yeah. So, how did you have a strong spiritual connection before you started, or did your spiritual connection grow as you went through? I mean, I know you have a strong spiritual connection now. So, what was that process? Did moving through the challenge change your spiritual connection at all?
Oh, I had a spiritual connection, but I think through the more and more you go through hell, the more you hold on to God.
Yeah,
And so that's that. I think through the years it totally grew, for sure. Absolutely.
great.
'Cause you learn to trust and hold on when things you think you can't get through, but you do get through. And I know I wouldn't have ever gotten through if I didn't have that spiritual relationship. It just wouldn't have happened. So
Yeah, that seems to be something I hear a lot on these interviews is that people feel that that's one of the main, and I feel that way myself too. In fact, I know that's for sure. If I didn't start to experience sort of the beauty of the light and the embrace of it, I would never have been able to deal with all the difficulty.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, yeah. So that's great. So, how do you feel like you're doing now in terms of your life and your spiritual connection and all of that?
Well, I mean, we've come through a lot. We've had good times, bad times, and that's probably the way it will be until I die,
Yeah.
because that's life. But my spiritual connection continues to just grow, grow, grow. And I don't think it will ever stop growing if I don't stop. So that has been our journey. We've learned so much, we've been through so much. And unfortunately, when I do this work to help others, um, certain people don't like that. So they like to use what I just call witchcraft to curse us and spiritual attacks. And people think, oh, I don't believe in that. Well, I've literally had some people that are not survivors and did not believe in curses, and they got hugely cursed in every area of their life. And this one person, even to the moment that her spouse and her are getting a divorce, and it was because of a curse. And I helped her figure out what they had done, and it was quite bad. It's because she made a comment on social media and said she was sick of this, woke crap or whatever she said. And people went berserk worldwide. Her statement went viral worldwide,
Wow.
and they
Wow.
attacked her like unbelievable. And
Wow.
they had cursed her with every curse they could probably think of. And so it's real. And you don't have to be a survivor to have a curse. If something is wrong in your life and you feel it, you probably have been cursed, because a lot of people do that. They,
Yeah.
and the way they get away with it is because nobody knows that that's even happening.
Right. That's for sure. So, how do you experience your do you okay, here's the question. How is a spiritual connection for you help you to experience more ability to function in life and success and also joy?
Well, I think through the spiritual help of the Lord every single day, every single moment, so basically how I do what I do with my life is I ask him, like, what's the most important thing for me to do daily? So I ask in the morning, I'll read the scriptures, I'll say the prayers, I'll say, okay, God, is there anything you want me to do, today? What's important for me to do today? And I get guided to do all kinds of things, like write another book, like do a podcast, do a training. So I'm led to each step along the way. So I'm not out there actually making the decisions. I feel like the Lord is saying, this is the next step, and this will take you to where I want you to go, which I don't even know where that is at the moment. Because if you would have told me that I was doing some of the things I'm doing now, like 10 years ago, even, I would have like, oh, wow, I don't know if I believe that. So I feel like a lot of things that we've been led to do, I did not plan on.
Well, that's kind of exciting, life is such a mystery, and I'm sure that that's true for a lot of people because, as one of my favorite teachers, Sri Ravi Shankar says, if you knew who was going to win the basketball game, nobody would stay till the end.
That's right.
Right?
And if you knew what was really going to happen to you, you probably wouldn't be wanting to go to the game at all if you knew some of the things that were going to happen. So,
Well, that's true, and also a lot of wonderful things can happen at the basketball game too, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So, are there any tips for people who have been through this kind of serious abuse that you could give now for them to help them?
Well, step one for any survivor of satanic ritual abuse or MK Ultra, you must absolutely 100% start leaning on the Lord. I say the Lord Jesus Christ and God the Father. Okay, so whatever you want to say, that's fine. But if you don't rely on them first out of the gate, you're not going to get far, because unfortunately, there is a demonic factor that we must address with survivors. And if it's not addressed, then the only spiritual effect that can take place to go over a demon or entities is through God or Jesus.
Yeah.
You're
It takes,
not.
I would say it like it takes the light to dispel the dark.
Yeah, absolutely. But the one thing I want to make clear, I've heard, I've had somebody actually come to a seminar of mine and said, why do you have to say God? Why don't you just say, light energy, like good energy? And I'm like, well, because God is not a good energy. Jesus is not an energy. He's actually a being. And so we need to respect his title and who he is. He's not a energy.
Right.
So we need to be careful when we say that, because it's actually
Yeah.
new age stuff,
Yeah.
and be very careful with that, because you don't know that you're calling on the true Lord Jesus Christ when you say, I've heard people say Christ energy, but that's not good, because what does that mean? What does that mean for sure?
Yeah. I mean, I think different people sort of make sense of all of it in different ways. That's what I think. So
Yeah,
they use
it
different
is, but in
words.
this area, you can't go to, well, anyway, I don't want to get too strict here, but
Yeah.
I even tell therapists who want to help survivors, if you don't have a relationship with the Lord, you don't do this work. If you're a professional, don't do it. And
Right.
number two, if you truly want to get free, you cannot get free if you don't have a spiritual relationship with God.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
not going to happen.
And then what if someone doesn't have a relationship with God? How do you sort of help them?
One step at a time. In the beginning, I just ask, well, because I always have to say a prayer in the beginning to protect ourselves when we do a session. And so I just say, I understand you're not ready to fully give that trust, but could you trust me enough to allow me to say a prayer to protect us? And so so they can learn through me.
Uh-huh.
I'm not teaching any religion. I'm just teaching how you must protect yourself to get through what you have to deal with.
Right.
And so usually they learn step by step.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you can have a pile of wood in front of you and you can actually have carpenter skills, but if you don't have a hammer and a screwdriver or a drill, you're never gonna be able it's like you gotta have tools, right? And
That's
so
right.
this is like a tool. So is there anything else that you would recommend for people?
Well, I think God takes us all where we're at. He takes us what our knowledge is or is not.
Mhm.
And you know what? He even takes us when we're so angry at him that we want to just have a tantrum. And he still
Sure.
takes us. And so we have to understand God loves us no matter what we are, what we've done, and he will take us where we're at. So don't be afraid to at least just try. I have witnessed something I will share with you. There was a person who came to see me, and she had pretty much zero belief in Jesus, in God.
Mhm.
And she had been taught a lot of new age belief systems.
Mhm.
And she went from not having any relationship at all. And it was simply we said prayers daily. I taught her how to protect herself from her attacks. I taught her how to access the Lord and how she can go there and
Uh-huh.
she can figure it out. And
Uh-huh.
so it was step by step over a year. And now she has such a good relationship she's learned to trust him one step at a time.
Beautiful.
And it was just by just exercising some things.
Yeah.
So
It would it seems a daunting task, and I can speak from my own experience to having a lot of bad things happen to you that are hurtful over and over, and to sort of be on guard all the time, like threat and danger, right? Something's gonna come and get me or hurt me, to sort of relaxing and opening your heart and saying, life is wonderful and this life is happening for me rather than to
right.
me, right? It's like that's a very big transition. And I think the more abuse you have, the more challenging that can be because, like you said, people are angry at God for the bad things that happen to them. That's
Yep.
totally natural. That's part of the human condition. Everybody has that because everybody experiences disappointment to some degree, and some people way, way, way more than others, unfortunately. So,
Right.
yeah, so that's beautiful. And I imagine that it's such an amazing thing for people when they start to build that spiritual connection and then they start to, I mean, I imagine, I don't work with survivors at this point in time, but I imagine their memories start to sort of come out from out of the closet gradually as they can
Mhm.
handle it and as the therapist is skilled to help them
Yes.
move through it. I mean, I think another really important point would be that they need to have a guide, right, to work through and to
Sometimes, though, the unfortunate part is, and I don't even know if I should share this with this, but unfortunately, that's not available to most survivors because
yeah,
there's few professionals that know. And then the cult sets it up where they don't have money, so they can't get help anyway, even if they found somebody. So a lot of my teaching is trying to teach them to help themselves. No, is it the most ideal way? No. But sometimes we have to face facts. There may not be anybody to help.
yeah. So
So, yeah.
that's so the spiritual connection and the spiritual support as a resource is always available
That's
and
right.
and
And
for free.
you can learn how to do holistic modalities. Like I teach them how to take their own power back, like learn tapping, body code, go to the courts of heaven. Just learn different ways that they can help themselves 24/7. And that is so empowering because when I wanted help and I only had a therapist to help me, it was horribly lonely and I couldn't get rid of the pain. I didn't know what to do with the pain. And yet every time I went, I just got more pain. So that is really a horrible place to be.
Well, that is a really good point to make. And when I did say get a guide, I meant a person who's been trained particularly in um, ritual abuse, trauma resolution,
And
not
that's like
not
5%
just
of the world.
right,
That's,
not just somebody who has a LLC after their name.
yeah, right.
That's
Yeah.
not what I'm talking about. You know,
Okay.
so how can people get in therapists that are interested in the training, people that need support? They maybe don't want to do the training, but maybe they're survivors and they want to get some support from you. How can they do that?
Well, two things that I have coming up that are very important for a professional if you want to help survivors. I highly recommend you take the certification that will be, I'm training one right now, but another one starting June 19th and 20th. So you have two different times you can choose from. You can go to both classes, or you like if one week you can't go to the one day, you can go to the other. So I'm
Yeah,
trying to make it so everybody can go. It is live. I do expect everyone to be there, and it's going to be on Zoom worldwide, so anybody can go. And
beautiful.
the other one is for survivors in August. It's 2, 3, 4. That's when it will just be for survivors, and we will teach you how to help yourself, to understand what's been done to you, and give you healing modalities to help.
That's
So
so good. That's so good. That's so good. Oh, so tell us, how do what's your website?
LauraJWorley.com and or puzzlepiecestogether.com. So it's all goes same place.
Okay, good, good. So, anything else that you want to leave with our listeners today? Has been so enlightening that, something, a topic that people don't feel comfortable to talk about, a part of life that, used to be like trauma. Like this is the new trauma that people don't want to talk about. Like people didn't used to like to talk about trauma. And, I thought it was so when I was becoming a trauma therapist, so interesting. And the teacher was like, guess what? Everybody's been through the birth canal or had a cesarean birth. So everybody's been traumatized because
Right.
that's traumatic. Take a thing that's this big and make it go through an opening that's this big. It's like that's traumatic. You might die. The mother might die. Everybody's afraid of this, somebody's gonna die. So I'm just saying, in the past, people don't want to talk about trauma
Like
or
you couldn't talk about
therapy.
sexual abuse or, oh no, people don't, that doesn't happen. That was in the 90s. Don't talk about sexual abuse. Don't talk about George Soros for sure. Or there's no such thing as SRA. That's crazy. They're under, the therapist made them believe that. That's what happened in the 90s when it started to come out.
Yeah,
So we've grown a lot in the last few years to be able to even talk. But the thing is I hate to share this with everyone, but it's a fact, and we have to accept it and do something about it. Is our governments
mm,
are all part of SRA. They're all part of Illuminati and Freemason. They all do rituals and they hurt children. So how long are we going to allow them to rule us when they do these things? And so we are no longer in a position to say, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. No, guess what? You are going to have to know because they are affecting your life and they want to take away every freedom you've ever had,
yeah.
including the way
The,
you think.
the way you think, where you go, what you do, who you do it with, and nobody can say no. I don't want to do it because there's no place to. There's no space for any kind of rallying. There's no space for any kind of anything. And it's very scary. It's very sad. And this is, as far as, I mean, how I frame it is like when you're dealing, it's similar to working through your trauma. It gets dark before it gets light. And
Yeah.
I think that's a lot for people to grok that the institution that's set there to be actually sort of like the good mom and dad to be helping us and to be supporting us actually have the opposite intentions
Yeah.
is something that is, and that the military is right there with it. It's something that takes a lot of maturity. Let's just say it that way.
Yes, it does. And unfortunately, I think the people that can't and don't want to look at it, I think when we're forced, and someday we will be forced to see all of that, it's going to be harder for the ones that just wouldn't allow themselves to know anything, because this is something that you need to take on to process. And it's okay if you do it a teeny bit at a time.
Right.
And that's just my biggest teaching is I tell everybody that comes to see me with their trauma and they get overwhelmed because it's so much and they can't see a way through. And what I tell them is, you know what, we can do this. You can do this one step at a time. You can get to the top of the mountain, but you won't do it until you do one step at a time. And if you just look at this little piece today, this little trauma of a big trauma, and then the next day, a little bit more of that big trauma, soon you will have looked at that whole trauma. And then you can go on to the next one that you have. And it works perfectly. And when I learned that, probably in the beginning of becoming a practitioner, that's how I live my life. If I even allow myself to go to something that's big, I say, nope, I'm just going to look at one thing I can do today. I cannot take on that whole thing. I won't. And it works.
That's good advice. I need that advice. Thank you, Laura.
It really helps to get through everything if you just do it that way. So
That's beautiful. And yeah, when I'm working with the people, I'm like, well, today we can be curious and just stick our toe in the water. Doesn't mean you have to go into your knee or into your waist. You just put your toe in, have a little bit of the little tiny baby step, right? Yeah. So I think that's very helpful. Well, this has been very illuminating and very awakening and a very big wake up call for people to recognize that we all need to have the greater spiritual connection so that we can sustain our autonomy, our sovereignty, and our freedom.
yeah, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better because it's absolutely true.
Thank you, Laura. Well, nice to see you here today.
Nice to see
And
you.
I'm so glad everybody tuned in. I hope you all have an open mind and open heart with all of this and titrate it, take it baby step, little bit at a time. Maybe it's too much for right now, but you just take a little bit and have a little bit more understanding and understand most of all that this is all happening so that everybody can come into a greater awareness of their connection with all that is, with God, and with our greater self, so that we can be free and enjoy life to the most. So thank you for attending. Thank you,
For
Laura.
having me.
Yeah. Okay,
It was
everybody.
great talking to you. Take
See you at the
care.
next episode. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye bye.
See ya.